Before a new dawn broke over the Arabian Peninsula in the 7th century, what was this land really like? It wasn't a blank slate, an empty desert waiting for a story to be written. No, pre-Islamic Arabia was a vibrant, complex world, a mosaic of tribes, traditions, and deeply held beliefs, all forged in one of the planet's most demanding environments. Imagine a world dominated by vast, unforgiving deserts, the Rub al-Khali, the empty quarter, in the south, and the Great Nafud in the north. Rain was a rare gift, and permanent rivers were practically non-existent. In this land, survival wasn't just a goal, it was an art form. This harsh reality gave birth to two distinct ways of life. Many Arabs were nomads, the people we now call Bedouins. They were masters of the desert, constantly moving with their herds of camels, sheep, and goats, following the faint promise of water and grazing land. Their lives were a seasonal dance with nature. But not everyone was a wanderer. In scattered pockets of fertility, like the lush lands of southern Arabia, what is now Yemen, and in oasis towns like Mecca, Yathrib, and Taif, settled communities thrived. These oases were islands of stability in a sea of sand. The sheer scale of the desert made it nearly impossible for a large, centralized empire to take root in the heart of Arabia. Instead, the land bred independence, incredible resilience, and an unbreakable loyalty to one's own kin. In this world, the tribe was everything. Forget nations, governments, or police forces. Your tribe was your identity, your protection, your social security, and your legal system, all rolled into one. It determined who your friends and enemies were, what resources you could access, and where you stood in the social order. Loyalty to the tribe, your asabiya, was absolute. To be cast out, to become tribeless, was a fate often considered worse than death itself, leaving you utterly exposed and vulnerable. Justice was a raw and personal affair, governed by custom and the law of retaliation. If a member of your tribe was harmed or killed, honor demanded a response. Your tribe was obligated to seek revenge or demand blood money. This system often spiraled into long, devastating feuds that could span generations, a cycle of violence passed down like an inheritance. But it wasn't all conflict. The tribal system was also built on a powerful moral code of honor called muruwa. This was the measure of a man. Courage in battle was praised, but so was boundless generosity to guests, unwavering loyalty to allies, and the sacred duty to protect the weak who sought your clan's protection. These were the virtues that earned a man respect and immortalized his name. And contrary to what you might think, Arabia was anything but isolated. It was a crucial crossroads of the ancient world. Great trade routes crisscrossed the peninsula, connecting the mighty Roman Byzantine Empire with Persia, East Africa, and the distant markets of India. Caravans laden with frankincense, myrrh, exotic spices, fine leather, and precious metals journeyed across the sands. Cities like Mecca grew wealthy and powerful not by producing goods, but by controlling these trade routes and guaranteeing safe passage for merchant caravans. This trade created vibrant hubs of culture. Annual fairs, like the famous market at Ucase, were massive events. Tribes from all over would gather not just to trade goods, but to settle disputes, forge alliances, and, most importantly, compete in poetry. But this new wealth also brought new problems. It created a growing gap between the rich and the poor. The wealthy tribes and merchant clans gained immense influence, while the poor, slaves, and those without powerful connections remained marginalized and unprotected. In a society where most people couldn't read or write, the spoken word held immense power, and poetry was its highest form. The poet, the sha'ir, was far more than just an artist. He was the tribe's historian, its propagandist, its social critic, and the defender of its honor. A powerful poem could celebrate a tribe's victory and ensure its fame for generations, while a single verse of biting satire could tarnish an enemy's reputation forever. These poems preserved genealogies, chronicled battles, and passed down the core values of Muruwa from one generation to the next. The most celebrated of these, known as the Mu'alakat or the Suspended Odes, were considered masterpieces capturing the raw beauty of desert life, the ache of love and loss, and the glory of battle. Poetry was the memory of the Arab people. Religiously, pre-Islamic Arabia was a rich tapestry of beliefs. Most tribes were polytheistic, worshipping a pantheon of gods and goddesses often tied to nature, celestial bodies, or specific tribal ancestors. The Kaaba in Mecca was already a sacred site for centuries, a central sanctuary that housed hundreds of idols representing the various deities of the peninsula. The annual pilgrimage to Mecca was a major religious event, bringing prestige and immense wealth to the city's caretakers. But polytheism wasn't the whole story. Thriving Jewish communities existed, especially in oases like Yathrib. Christian tribes, influenced by nearby Byzantium and Ethiopia, were also a significant presence. Ideas from Persian Zoroastrianism trickled in along the trade routes. And then there were the Hanifs, native Arab monotheists who had rejected idol worship and sought a purer, more direct relationship with a single, universal God, separate from both Judaism and Christianity. So, the concepts of one God, of prophecy, and of a moral accounting in the afterlife were already circulating in the air. Society was deeply hierarchical. At the top were the free male members of powerful, wealthy tribes. The status of women varied greatly. Some, in certain tribes and classes, could wield considerable influence and own property, while many others had very few rights. The horrifying practice of female infanticide existed among some tribes, a desperate act often driven by the crushing weight of poverty or the fear of dishonor that a captured daughter could bring. Slavery was a common and accepted part of life, and the enslaved had almost no legal protection. Orphans, the poor, and outsiders were left to the mercy of their patrons. While generosity was a celebrated virtue, there was no universal system of justice that applied to everyone equally. Your rights depended entirely on the strength of your tribe. So, this was Arabia before Islam, not a primitive void, but a world bursting with life, yet deeply fragmented. It had strong social bonds, a rich oral culture, and communities that had mastered survival. But it lacked a unifying force that could rise above the endless cycle of tribal feuds. Deep social inequalities created simmering resentment. Religious practices were diverse, but lacked a shared ethical foundation. It was a world defined by honor and survival, a world of fierce loyalties and fierce rivalries. It was a world unknowingly on the cusp of a profound transformation. From this very landscape, a new message would soon emerge, one that would challenge the supremacy of the tribe, redefine the meaning of justice, and unite the peninsula under a single, radical belief. To truly understand the revolution that was to come, we must first understand the world that birthed it, an Arabia of sand, poetry, and tribes. If you enjoyed this journey into ancient history, don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who loves history, and subscribe to the channel for more stories about the civilizations, beliefs, and people that shaped our world. Your support helps keep history alive.